Om Jnanativarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshulanmilitamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him. So, I'm very happy to be here with all of you tonight. I know a number of you, maybe a majority of you, and I don't know the rest, but I'm still happy to be with those who I don't know either. We have Krishna Mai here visiting. How long will you be here for? Oh, all right, not very long. All right, well, thanks for stopping by. So, she grew up here in Southern California, and she started coming into this temple, right? So now she's living in the UK, right? So visiting us. And anyways, I don't want to go through the whole, spend all night introducing different personalities. But so last week, Vijay Prabhu, the speaker from last week, those of you heard him speak, he brought up a particular verse in the Bhagavad Gita, book spoken by Krishna, and in that particular verse he quoted, quoted from a specific chapter, and that is chapter 2. So chapter 2 is Krishna's explanation of the soul, the different characteristics of the soul. So one of those verses that Krishna states there is that the soul cannot be burned, cannot be cut, cannot be soaked by water, cannot be withered by the wind. And anyways, there's so many verses Krishna explains. So the body can be cut, the body can be burned, the body can be could drown, and so on. So the soul, you could say, or we could say, is indestructible. It's eternal. It doesn't die when the body dies, and it's not affected by what the body experiences. Now, of course, someone may say, okay, well, if you're saying the body or the soul cannot be cut, burned, etc., and it's just the body that experiences all these things, so does this justify violence, right? Because if the Bhagavad Gita is explaining we're not our bodies, so what's the problem with violence then? Right? If I say, oh, you're not your body, or if somebody says, Balarama Dasa, you're not your body, give me your finger. I'll get too graphic, but I have a knife here, right? What is it? What does it matter? So that's a question. Now, the idea being is that just because we're the soul, we're not the body, doesn't mean that we could just commit a bunch of violence towards other people or other bodies. Now, of course, Rishi, do you think you could just turn those lights up just a little bit? Because it seems it's very bright over here and dark over there. Okay, that's good. All right. Thank you. All right. So, where was I?
Can't hurt the soul.
Huh?
Can't hurt the soul, Balarama Dasa.
Yeah. Okay, so violence. So violence, it may be necessary sometimes. Like if an innocent person means a person who cannot defend themselves is out on the street and they're being attacked by somebody clearly more strong than them and etc., then someone may use violence to protect another person. So that could be necessary. Just like if somebody has a child and they're walking on the street and somebody tries to attack their child. So a person could use violence to protect their child. So it's not that we are absolutely nonviolent. We're nonviolent most of the time. And sometimes we could be violent for a good purpose. So I was speaking to I had a friend named Sura, and he was told by an astrologer that he would drown in 2014. So he was told this like 2012 or something. He would drown in 2014. That's what the astrologer told him. Usually you go to astrologer for good news, but anyways, this astrologer told him this. So when it was getting closer to that time, 2014, he was really, you okay? All right. You need some water? Here, you want to bring him some juice? Somebody?
Raj got it.
Okay. So he was told in 2014 that he would drown. Now, you want to hit his back? I think my guru was given a talk one time, and then somebody, I forgot what happened. I don't know if somebody like had a seizure or some type of, anyways. I forgot what it was. You remember that? It was at the Sadhu Sangha Festival. It's a recorded lecture. You could hear it. Is there a doctor in the house, right? So,
sometimes.
Yeah. So this person was told he was going to drown in 2014. Now, at that time, when he was getting closer to that time, he was avoiding all different types of bodies of water. He was avoiding pools, river, the ocean. He was avoiding bathing. Just joking. I don't know. Maybe. He was avoiding all different types of water, right? Because said he was going to drown, and he believed this astrologer. Now, when he was driving down to Mexico, we had a festival down there in Tijuana. What happened is he couldn't breathe at one point when I was driving down there. He was close to the border, so he pulled over, and he was having a difficult time breathing. So they called the ambulance. Ambulance came, and they rushed him to the hospital. Now, when he was rushed to the hospital, they checked him out, and they told him that if you didn't show up at the hospital at the time you did, you would have drowned. What were they talking about? You would have suffocated. What was that? Because the water was filled up his lungs, like 30% or whatever it was. Somehow or other, that happened. So he managed to escape. So that's what was being referred to, that you'll drown in 2014. Now, the astrologer was pretty close, not exact, and that the person didn't drown, but he was pretty close. Now, to be in a situation in which you are faced a life and death situation, such as drowning, it's very intense. I don't know if anyone's ever been in the situation like that, swimming in a pool or an ocean. It's very intense. And a lot of people, it's scary, intense, right? Now we could talk about it. Right, for so many minutes, so many hours about the phenomenon of drowning, right, and how scary it is and intense. Now, talking about it versus actually experiencing it, there's a big difference. So there's a big difference between philosophizing or just speaking or communicating and then having an actual experience. It's like night and day. For example, I was speaking to this professor and he was saying how he does an exercise with his students, a mental exercise, in which he presents a scenario. And the scenario is, okay, there's a lifeboat, right? The main ship has capsized, right? It's going down. Now there's a raft there. Now the raft is starting to become overpopulated. Too many people. Overpopulation. Too many people. So who to throw off? This is the mental exercise. Now there's a woman and her newborn child. There's an athlete. There's a doctor. There's an elderly couple. So this is what they're discussing, right? Who should go? This is what the students are talking about. Who should go? And no one's crying about it. Oh no, we have to, oh no, this person, and why did you pick that person? Nobody's fighting over it, nobody's crying over it. It's not an emotionally surcharged experience. They're just talking about it. Now, what about a real situation? Or what about a real story portrayed in a film or a movie, for example? Which there are such movies. There's an old movie, which probably, I don't know if anybody's seen here. Probably not. Maybe. It's called A Night to Remember. Now this film, it was a film based on the real story of, guess what? The Titanic. It was a real movie based on, or it was a movie based on this real story. Now in that movie, the same professor, he would show the students this movie. And not the whole movie, just excerpts of it. And there's some emotional parts of that movie. And he said that these students who were previously just discussing it and not crying and not having a difficult time, while seeing the movie, so many of the students, and he did this experiment for years, they would cry. Because there's times where there's two ladies, and the lady's saying, you go, you have children waiting for you at home. And then there's times where the husband is telling his wife, please, you go, my dear wife. And then she's saying, why should I go now? She said, I'm always with you. Why should I leave you now? And there's so many cases like that. And then you have these other cases where people, the boat was not very populated, and they were being encouraged, go back, because there's people who are going to drown. You should go back. And the people say, no, we're not going back. We're just sailing on. Or there's people disguising themselves in this and that. Somehow they're trying to cheat to save themselves and forget about others in so many different ways. So we could see that just talking about it versus actually experiencing it, or not even just experience, just watching it portrayed in a film, there's a big difference. So similarly, in our lives, we may philosophize so much about this, about that, about so many things. But the philosophy has to, the proof of a good philosophy, is that it has to be put to test in real life, day-to-day life, and it has to work. It means it has to produce some objectively good results. Means good for us, good for others, good for the world, good for the environment, good for everyone and everything. It has to produce that. Or else the philosophy is a little shaky. So, where is that philosophy that can be tested in real life and it could actually have great results? It may be a challenge to find a perfect philosophy. Or what to speak. Anyways. All right, that phone saved me. Okay, I was going to say something, but it might be hard, right, to find. And when we talk about morality, when we talk about ethics, right, sometimes people don't like to talk about that stuff, but when we talk about these things, usually it comes to the point, because people say, oh, no, it's all the same, it doesn't matter, right, whatever floats your boat. But usually it comes to the point where people start, okay, that's good, that's bad. It comes to that point when people and pain comes into the picture. Meaning that, okay, do whatever you want, but don't hurt people, right? And of course, there's a question of hurting ourselves too. But so the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, it is a philosophy that has great results in real life, in real time, and that it allows us, or it gives us the strength not to cause pain to any living entity. It's actually a very high mark. A lot of philosophies, they sound good, but then when put into practice, they do cause pain to people. Just like the philosophy of materialism. It causes a lot of pain. For example, as we were discussing earlier, we're not the physical bodies. It means we're not this ethnicity, that ethnicity, this ethnicity, that ethnicity. And if somebody realizes that, then racism is extinguished from at least their consciousness. Now, racism throughout time, throughout history, and up to the present moment has caused a lot of pain in people's lives. Deaths, destruction, just ruining people's lives. So the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, it will erase so many things or so many ideas within humanity at large, if it's actually accepted to humanity at large, that will solve so many of the problems. Just like, as our spiritual teacher would say, the myth of scarcity means that there's a belief that there's not enough for everybody, but there is, provided the leaders know how to manage. But because they're too materialistically inclined, and it'd be nice, I could say so many things, but they don't know how to manage. And therefore there's a bunch of problems. It means world hunger and so on. So anyways, there's so many different things that could be, that can be experienced. And why do people cause pain to other living entities? Through their speech, through their body, through their writings and so on. What through their speeches? Why? Why is all this there? It's because of the envy in their heart. And what is envy? Envy is, there's two definitions, but envy means we're jealous over something that somebody has that we don't have. It's a type of envy. Another envy is we just have malice towards others. We just don't like people. We just hate them because they're not part of our group. This reason, that reason, so many reasons. We hate them. So the envy within our heart, or within people's hearts, that may be hard to control. And just look historically. I mean, all the problems, historically speaking, stemming from envy, hatred towards others. It's been hard for people to find a philosophy and a practice that actually allows them not to be envious, not to act on the envy. It's very difficult. So Krishna consciousness, the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, based on chanting the Hare Krishna mantra like we're doing earlier, studying spiritual books, keeping company of spiritually minded people, it allows us to be far above the envious platform, in which we do not cause pain to anyone. As our spiritual teacher would say, this he wrote 50 years ago in his books, but he was saying, are the animals not American citizens as well? It means they're also being slaughtered. Aren't they also American citizens? So it's caused pain, unnecessary pain to living entities, slaughterhouses. So it will work. And just because there's a few cases of spiritual people who can't live up to this standard of not causing pain to living entities, there are people who do live up to the standard of not causing pain to any living entity. Majority, we're humans, right? Kind of struggle with it, but I know of some people who cause no pain to any living entity. I am fully convinced of that. So it is possible. And the value of that is that other people won't experience pain. But also the value of that is that that's actually as humans what we're supposed that's how we're supposed to be living. We're not supposed to be causing pain to each other and the environment and animal, and so just causing this bunch of pain to everything and everyone. That's not the idea. The idea is that to cause pain to no living entity, and aside from causing no pain to no living entity, to get to the platform of the spiritual platform in which we're experiencing this unlimited happiness, or Brahma Saukyam Tvanantam, this happiness that has no end, that doesn't revolve on exploitation of others. Just like a guy may say, yeah, I'm feeling very happy, but in the process I'm just really destroying other people's lives. What type of happiness is that? Like my friend one time, he had a distant roommate, and the roommate was participating in what I guess, I don't know if it has a term, I guess hookup culture. You just sleep with anyone and everyone who has possible, right? I was going to say with two legs, but whatever. And this way, that it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter. Just you have urges; they need to be satisfied in order for you to feel some temporary happiness, gratification. So just go for it. But psychologically speaking, now of course people could disagree. It's a free world, and I'm sure many people do. But it's actually not healthy. Because it's based on exploitation. I'm using you for my selfish purposes. I don't care about you. I could care less about you. I'll use you temporarily. After that, I don't care what happens. I don't care if you die. I don't care if you commit suicide. I don't care. It's just based on my happiness. So it's based on exploitation, both parties, right? Now, so when my friend was talking to this person, doesn't it kind of hurt you? You just kind of like using all of these people? And the guy said, "Ah, not really. You know, may hurt them, but so so the human form of life, it is a life that is it's meant to be based on self-realization and not exploitation. Now, yeah, so this is the value of the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, that it actually allows one to live happily on the platform of non-exploitation, non-envious, not using people. Sometimes people think that it has nothing to do with using people, but that's exactly what's going on. Okay, so I'll stop there. Does anybody have any questions or comments?
Any comments or questions? I have a comment.
Yes.
Just on the last thing that you said. We have a renowned monk, a very intelligent monk. He's based in India, in Mumbai, an ashram in Chowpatty, and he goes by the name of Chaitanya Charan Prabhu. But he actually studied, or he read an article of a study of researchers at the University of Harvard, where they were studying just students and just the topic of loneliness, and what they discovered was that the people who felt just this deep sense of incredible amount of loneliness were those people who were a part of what she had referenced as hookup culture, right? Those people who engaged in that sort of lifestyle were by far the most lonely and depressed of all the students. So it's interesting that you mentioned that. I just wanted to share that.
Thank you.
Raj?
Okay, Mr. Raj.
Thank you, Mr. Balarama. Hello. You mentioned that envy and hatred of other people or seeking other people is what normally destroys. I found with studying human behavior, envy and hatred and malice normally is an act of weakness. Only when you're weak do you project your weakness as a strength or as a bullying tactic. Is there a possibility going down the spiritual road, chanting Hare Krishna, becoming one with God, there's a way to remove that if you actually become strengthful in yourself? Is there a process to help those that are envious?
Is there a process? Okay. So yeah, there's a process. It says that the consciousness becomes covered, or covered by all different types of, you could say, dust or dirt or contamination. So the idea is that there has to be a cleansing process. The material world, or the world we're in now, there's in many ways a dirty place. So there's a lot of dirt that can accumulate in our consciousness, just living in this world. So there's a cleansing process. So that cleansing process, there's many different processes, but one of the processes is chanting Hare Krishna, like we were doing earlier. So that acts as a cleansing agent to our consciousness. Sometimes the consciousness is considered to be like a pond, and if a pond becomes very dirty, you need some heavy rainfall to clean the pond. So this chanting acts as that rainfall to cleanse our consciousness, and it will work gradually. Just like when we're flying in a plane, we're going up, and we may not be realizing how high we're going, how high we are, but at one particular point, we looked down and said, "Well, I'm quite high in the sky." I used to, I was down there in San Diego doing so many things. Now I'm high in this plane. So similarly, in spiritual life, it's like becoming elevated in a plane, right? We may not notice it, but it does work over time, and we will notice it, and people will notice it. So in other words, it could be tested. The test of a philosophy or the test of a spiritual practice is that it gives us the strength to be above the platform of envy and hatred. It means we learn how to love everyone. That should be the test. Which could mean that, okay, this spiritual practice isn't working, let me give it up. Or it could just mean, okay, let me apply myself a little more, right? Like someone would say, I'm not getting big muscles, right? Well, how often are you going to the gym to work out your arms? Once a month. For how long? 20 minutes. That's not gonna work, right? If you want to have big muscles, you need to take lots of steroids. Just joking. You need to exercise a lot, right? Work out muscles, and then you become strong, right? So similarly, spiritually, every day. That's the idea. Any other?
I will take one more before we end this program.
Jai Balaram, thank you. I could listen to you for hours. I wish I could.
I
Very
couldn't.
nice.
I couldn't listen to me for hours. I could hardly listen to me for 40 minutes. Anyways.
I have a pick'em situation. You can choose whichever prompt motivates you more. I had like Nero. He was fiddling while Rome burned, and the band in the Titanic played while the Titanic went down.
Yeah.
So on the Titanic, there's a song, and the crescendo is "Women and children first," right? That's
Yes.
who should go to the lifeboats first.
Yeah.
So there was this guy who went down in infamy. His name is synonymous with being defamed, where a lifeboat was full of women and children, and right when the door was shutting, some middle-aged man jumped on.
Yeah.
And he survived, and he was decried as some coward for life, but his grandchildren still probably live here today. So what do you think of that? A guy who, dishonored himself, but self-preservation, and then he was defamed. The other thing, too, was that, oh man, I had it right on the tip of my tongue. Yeah, that was a good one. Okay, Haribol.
It's too good.
Yeah, Haribol.
Much. Well, I mean, one of my friends told me the other day that he told me that his father had a friend, and this friend of his father's was married. He had a wife and two children, and their teenage children, and he said that here in Southern California that they were driving one day, and then they're about to cross a train track, and so right when they're about to cross, the went down. The arm went down, so they couldn't. Of course, someone could argue maybe he could have just stepped on the gas, but those things could be strong. They were strong, but anyways, he didn't step on the gas, and he was stuck on this side, and the train was coming. So what the guy did is he just he took off his seatbelt really quick, and he just jumped out, So then, but right when the train was about to hit the car, it slowed down, and his wife and children were saved, and the car was saved, and everything. Right? So then he had to get back in the car. So it's like that was like very awkward, So imagine you had to get back in the car, right? So get back in the car, you're like, So, guys ready to go home? And, yeah, Dad, sure. Later I heard they divorced, but anyways, where's the real love, right? So sometimes for self-preservation, people do so many things. I mean, I was told there's a fire, because there's so many fires in Southern California, but there's a fire, and there's a case in which 2 children were in the fire, and the mother was told by the fireman, you can't go back. And then, and the mother didn't go back. And, I mean, I know my sister Macy, she's like really attached to her son. He's a young boy, like, I don't know, 7 or something. But she was saying, man, I would tell those firemen to, get lost. I'm going to get my son. Like, who cares what you say? So sometimes for self-preservation, people do so many things. That some people say, why would they do that? Like, why would they go jump on a boat and use defamed? So, yeah, that just goes to show that this, you could say, need for self-preservation, or the desire to save oneself is very strong, right? And people may be put in a difficult situation, and they may just save themselves, and they don't care, what type of. You have something, Michael?
Yeah, I mean, I can't help thinking that I doubt a lot of those people, maybe some, but many, if you say, would you ever do that? Majority say, absolutely not. But I think it's an impulse at the moment of truth, so to speak.
Yeah.
And your true self may actually be revealed to you at that moment.
Yeah.
You might not even think you're capable of leaving your child, your wife,
Yeah.
etc. But it's very revealing at that moment. It's not even your brain probably has time to
Yeah.
think. It's just you are reacting.
Yeah.
And that's revealing maybe your true nature as
Yeah.
a selfish.
Yeah. Yeah. Someone. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Someone may say, "Yeah, I'll take a bullet for you." Like these whatever security guards, or the bodyguards to famous people. I mean, sometimes they're the one who actually, assassinate the person who's supposed to be protecting. But they say, "Oh, I'll take a bullet for you," and sometimes they do, but sometimes they don't, because at that time you can't really philosophize. Is this good? Is this bad? Basically, it can, but generally you don't really have time to do that. It's just you act according to your character development, based on who you are, what you actually believe, or what you're convinced of. Just like they say, nothing against dogs. I know we're in the land of, but we really do have nothing against dogs. But if you put a dog on a throne, right? This is, king, right? You put a nice crown on him and everything, and start asking him questions how to, whatever, manage the government or something. Now, he may be looking very good there, right? But then you throw a bone or whatever, some type of tree, and then he, jumps off. That's his nature, or her nature. He just jumps. So people act according to their nature. So that's the beauty of spiritual life, is that it will help us act according to our true nature, the best version of ourselves. You heard that one? Yeah. Our true nature, in which it's really a great platform to act on. So that's what spiritual life does. And when we're tested in those times of difficulty, like, should I embezzle all this money for my own selfish purposes? Nobody's looking. I'm part of a non-profit and nobody's looking. Should I embezzle here? Or should I do this, or should I do that? Things that are questionable in most people's minds, and questionable to our conscience. So if we become spiritually strong, then nope, not doing that. So, all right, I dodged that question, I think. Thank you very much.
I was just
No, I don't know if I
say,
dodged. Oh, okay.
I was just going to say that Balaram took the bait with your question, but the because initially when he brought it up in the class, he wasn't trying to make like give social commentary on what you should do on a sinking ship or like give his opinion on what you should do on a sinking ship, but it was that he brought up the Titanic thing and people getting off the boat as an example of what your philosophy is. You know, when you're just theoretically talking about it, and the actual application can be very different. And therefore, he brought up that example that people discussing, you know, getting on a boat and what should be done, as opposed to what happens in the actual situation, whether you cry or not, whether it's emotional or not. And from there, he drew on that to mention how just have a philosophy, but not actually practice it. It's easy to have a philosophy. It's a different thing to actually have philosophy and practice it. It's like night and day. It's like completely different things. And then from there, he went on to say what he thinks the best philosophy is. So we don't have to. Well, I just wanted to mention that because I don't want people to walk away from the talk thinking that, all right, tonight's talk was, what was it about? It was that, oh yeah, so what do you do when you jump?
What do you do when you're?
Is it okay or not to get on a lifeboat? Yeah. So that's all. I just wanted to.
Thank you.
Your answer was very profound because my second part was about philosophy. In college, I took a course and they were trying to define the limits of American
Prove it. Where's
freedom.
your diploma? I'm just joking.
I went to college in California, though, Cal State. So, okay, they said that American freedom is you can enjoy as much as you possibly can up to the extent by which your finger touches someone else's nose. So you can enjoy all the way up to here, but the second your finger touches someone else's nose, that's too much freedom. So what do you think about that? Like, we can enjoy as much as we possibly can up until we've extended our finger so much it touches someone else's nose.
Okay, well, land of the free, right? Home of the brave, sure.
Until we poke someone with that freedom.
But then the question is, what is enjoyment? Like our spiritual teacher, he would, like one time he was asked, what's the goal of life? And then he said, to enjoy. So most people, everybody will agree on that. No one wants to suffer, they want to enjoy. But then there's different ideas. What is enjoyment? Some people think enjoyment is whatever, so many things. So what is enjoyment? So there's different types of enjoyment. There's enjoyment of the body and the senses, the urges of the senses. There's enjoyment of the mind, right? Means some mental enjoyment. Just like there was one big political leader, I forgot where in the world, but not in America, somewhere else, but she said, sex, that's nothing. She said, power's the real thing, That's a real enjoyment, So it depends on what people's philosophy is, or what conviction they have. And there's different types of enjoyment, bodily, mental, and then there's spiritual. Which the nice thing about spiritual enjoyment is that it's not based on the body or the senses, because one of the difficult things about enjoyment on the body and senses platform is that it's very limited. Like, for example, someone may have a very nice, they may like a very nice preparation, means to ingest, right? Something. Somebody says, I really love enchiladas. I think they're serving those tonight, very soon. Lasagna. Someone may say, I really like lasagna. Kind of look like enchiladas, but anyways. Lasagna enchiladas. It doesn't exist. No. But someone may say, I really like lasagna, right? All right, good. Me too. But how much lasagna can we take? Not that much. I mean, it kind of, how long can you push that enjoyment? Depends on how good it is, yeah. You could keep on going for a while, right? So, but at one point now, that's all with all material enjoyment is like that. It's temporary, has a roof. So, but spiritual enjoyment, it's not based on the body or the mind. It's a soul, it's the happiness of the soul, which is unlimited. So it could just keep on increasing. Like chanting Hare Krishna. Right now, as we speak in Vrindavan, India, those of you know it, there's a 24-hour kirtan going on. Like we were just chanting, that's going on 24 hours in Vrindavan, India. And it's an enjoyment, of course. They also have to sleep and all that stuff, but it keeps on going, you know. So our spiritual teacher would just sometimes blatantly say to people, you don't know what enjoyment is. And he would say that real enjoyment is a spiritual enjoyment, which can be tested. You don't have to, please don't accept what I'm saying just on the basis of what I'm saying. I beg of you not to accept it. But accept it on the platform of your own experience. Like you chant Hare Krishna. I'm not going to chant Hare Krishna for you. I chant Hare Krishna for myself. But you chant Hare Krishna and you'll see the result or the benefit. You could test it. Challenge it. So that's the idea. And it will bring that spiritual enjoyment. Okay. All right. So I think it's time for lasagna. Yeah. So.
All right, it's a couple